the entire Big Sky 55 team, please, a round of applause for everybody, because I work with a lot of organizations around the country, and Big Sky 55 really is a gem. Montana is I think, difficult state to organize in. It's enormous, and you have to go to every nook and cranny. And so I one time sort of made a gamble or a bet or whatever. I said to Margie, I said, I can do as many things as you can schedule. And they just wrote that down. And this is the result of that. But it's really my pleasure to be here. I am coming out from Washington, D.C. I'm the executive director of Social Security Works. We've been around for 15 years working on changing the conversation on Social Security, on Medicare, on Medicaid, and creating an expanded economic system that supports everyone in this country. And so Faith is the one who tells me to speed up, or I talk a lot. But I just want to do just a little bit of the beautiful history before we get into the dismal current. But it's a reminder of where Social Security came from as well. It did not grow out of great times. It was Francis Perkins, FDR, Eleanor Roosevelt. Francis Perkins is an absolute hero. But it grew out of the Great Depression, right? A global economic calamity that the world had never seen before, caused by greed from Wall Street, caused directly by the inequality that comes from allowing billionaires to have everything so that anyone else has nothing. And every time the billionaires will do this and drive the economy right into the ditch, they don't have a natural ability to stop. There is no enough in their heart or head. And there's this part where if we want to wax philosophic later, we can question why. But it just is a fact. And 90 years ago, faced with the catastrophe caused by Wall Street, Francis Perkins and the New Dealers created Social Security along with other policies like the minimum wage, the right to form a union and collectively bargain, unemployment insurance. All of them united by, they're going to address the problem of then, the Great Depression, unemployment that was astronomical, 1 in 2 people without employment at the time in a nation that's dependent on wages. The whole American question was actually, or the whole American experiment was called into question. And you have to remember at that time, authoritarianism was rising all around the world, right? You had fascism in Europe rising. You had authoritarian totalitarianism in the Soviet Union rising. And so there were forces here in America who were saying, look, democracy just isn't able to do it. The people can't handle ruling, governing ourselves. But the New Dealers were like, that's absolute hogwash, baloney. They probably used meaner words, but I don't know. And they said, we're going to create an American system that rewards hard work, represents the best of American values, and takes into account that if your society revolves around wages and workers being able to earn an honest day's wage from an honest day's work, and I always tell people, the minimum wage was created in the New Deal, and if you've never read FDR, his speeches about the minimum wage, I really invite you to read it, because it was a living wage. It was never supposed to be anything but, if a worker worked, then they should be able to live on the wages that they earned. Because the billionaires at the time were doing what the billionaires today, and this is what I'm going to talk about, it's the same. The billionaires at the time were paying starvation wages. Right? They were paying as little as they could. And the workers did the work and the billionaires took the money. And they drove the whole world economy into a ditch. So Social Security was created to help address the problems of the time, but also to prevent them from happening again in the future by being an engine against inequality. And for 90 years, Social Security has done that. And you just have to. I feel like we should give a round of applause to Frances Perkins. Through war and peace, through boom and bust, through pandemic and health, Social Security has never missed a single payment. Until now, unfortunately. But first I'm going to grab the clicker. And then I'm going to talk about a couple things. Who is doing the attacking of Social Security, of Medicare, of Medicaid, of all working people? Who is it? And I'll just answer it. The billionaires and those who dance to the tune that they call. What did I just do? Might have been timed out here, huh? Nope. I got it. I pushed a button. Usually I just have the computer up here and I click on it. It's the billionaires. Yes, it's the Republicans who are doing their bidding, but it's the billionaires because Social Security was created as an anti-billionaire engine. That's why I did that whole introduction. And the same people who caused the Great Depression, the same exact people, not literally, but Elon Musk, you can find an analog of him in the robber barons very easily, right? They have hated Social Security for every one of the 90 years that it's existed, and they've waged a campaign against it. But Social Security has this really powerful thing going for it. Everybody loves it. Everybody. And why? Who gives us Social Security? We do. That was the genius of Frances Perkins. She knew that she needed to create a system that was by working people, for working people, and excluded Wall Street. We don't need any of the banks and Wall Street involved, and actually excluded Washington, D.C. as well. It's not funded by the general fund. It's our money. We see it coming out of our paychecks, and we know that it's going to be there for us. It's an insurance system, a lifelong insurance system for if we can retire. And it's a wage insurance system, very specifically. So it's the loss of wages due to retirement or a life-changing illness or injury and becoming disabled and can no longer work, or for the surviving minor children in the loss of a breadwinner. And that's what it does. Like clockwork, it provides for the workers, and the billionaires hate it. Everyone else loves it, though. So to come after Social Security, they actually attack confidence in the system, not saying, hey, we want to, right. They would get voted out of office immediately if they were just to run on, hey, we're going to get rid of Social Security because we don't like it. There's a guy who ran against FDR who did that. His name's Alf Landon. Has anyone heard of him? No, right? Because the only people who know about him are nerds like me, who are like, he lost every state in the country except his home state, because you can't run against a beloved program. So what they do is they try to undermine confidence in it, which is why you have heard, how many of you have heard that Social Security is going bankrupt, right? Running out of money, it's not going to be there. And for younger folks in the room, how many of you have heard it's not going to be there for your generation, right? But for older folks in the room, wiser folks in the room, how many of you heard that when you were younger? Just to make sure that young folks today understand that it's been the same attacks. The economy and government are in a bad place, and there's no guarantee that the money from Social Security will be there. That's from a focus group. That is the lack of confidence that this propaganda campaign is aimed at. So who? The billionaires. Why? Because they're evil, but at least it's because they hate it. Now, this is a bit of the how. How? They lie. They lie. And you're going to really, I want you to hear me. They lie. They're actively lying. Donald Trump said, I'm not going to cut Social Security. Lie. I'm not going to cut Medicaid. Lie. I'm going to release the Epstein list. Lie. Right? The man, exactly. The man is a liar. The news media does a real disservice by putting it in a passive voice all the time, right? It's like, oopsies. No. Active lies. So the first rule of billionaire, destroy Social Security, I love the laser pointer, Trent, is never call it Social Security, right? Only call it an entitlement. Why? Because everybody loves Social Security and people don't know what entitlement is. And then this is from a debate that I did with an economist from the Heritage Foundation. Do you all know who the Heritage Foundation is? For those of you who don't know, it's a building in Washington, D.C., and it's filled with paid liars. And they're paid by billionaires to lie on television so that the billionaires get what they want. And this was how she lies, how they lie. This was the economist I was debating. So they say entitlement spending will nearly double by 2050. So this is percentage of GDP. They put I put the scary red line on, but the idea is this is an unsustainable growth, right? And we're talking about Social Security. Can we afford Social Security? And they're talking about entitlements. So they put Medicare on there, Medicaid, Obamacare subsidies, and Social Security, right? So I went on their website, I downloaded her slides before the debate, I altered them to tell the truth, and then I did that from stage, and she thought it was deeply unfair, and I'm like, well, you should try not lying for a living. You would win more often. And it was in front of the National Academy of Social Insurance, and I soundly won that debate. Because this is the truth. We have the truth on our side. If you just look at Social Security as a percentage of GDP, it's extremely clear that this is an affordable system. Everybody loves it. It's deeply affordable. And most importantly, it's our money. That's why they can't take it away. How could you get away with taking away something that everyone loves, is super affordable, and works extremely well for 90 years? Lie. So you can see here it's 2050. It stays that way all the way out into 2100. So into the next century. And this little kink right here, that is the baby boom generation. And we're gonna come to that. And none of that was a shock, actually, to anyone. The actuaries have always accurately predicted population growth, longevity. I'll show you some of that in a couple slides. But first, a second. So what is the scary red line? Because we are going to talk about healthcare and Medicare and Medicaid here. This is total healthcare costs in the United States. Is it better without the reverb or with the reverb? With. So the red line is total healthcare costs in America, right? And you see, if I put that scary red line from the last one, the slope is the same. That's what's unaffordable, healthcare costs. The blue line down here is still Social Security. Straight line. What is driving that, though? Because it's not Medicare. Medicare does a far better job restraining healthcare costs than the private sector. It's not Medicaid, which provides services that nowhere else provides. Medicaid basically is a system that pays for mothers to give birth, for seniors in long-term care, and for folks who lose their job because they become sick or disabled. And when they lose their job because of our really dumb system, the New Deal was supposed to have guaranteed health care for every person in this country, by the way, but it was dealt away. And that's what Francis Perkins would be disappointed in us, that we still don't have it. But because of 3 billionaire-led industries, big pharma, big insurance, and big hospital, you see unsustainable cost growth. It is true that if healthcare costs keep rising at the rate that they are, we will be spending, if you project it out, 100% of our GDP on healthcare in the future. And obviously, we're not going to be doing that. So it is unsustainable. But what is it? How many of you have ever been on a pharmaceutical drug Maybe you've taken it for a while. Then you go to the pharmacy all of a sudden, and the price has skyrocketed. Yep. 4 hands. There's always a hand, no matter how many times I do this, because that is what life in America is like. And what is that? That is a private equity billionaire or a corporation buying another company. They have software that goes through the inventory. They identify what they call undervalued assets, which are drugs that they say are priced too low, and then they jack up the price to what they say is whatever the market will bear. But I ask you, what are you willing to pay for a drug that you need to live, or a drug that your children or a loved one needs to live, right? And the answer is everything you have and everything you can borrow, which is what the market will bear in billionaire ease means how can we kill just a few people because they can't afford it so that everyone else is terrified enough that they pay these astronomical rates. And if you think I'm overstating it, just look at insulin, a drug that's over 100 years old, and a cartel is telling people it's $400 a month and it increases every single year like clockwork, all 3 companies together. That's what creates that red line. Big insurance. Here's one. How many of you have had to deal with a prior authorization? What is that? You go to a doctor, the doctor says, do this thing. You go to get that thing, and then some other person in a suit who didn't go to medical school, they went to business school, and they say, whoa, 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 you're going to need a prior authorization from a doctor. And you're like, who do you think sent me here in the first place? My doctor. We're the only country in the world that allows that to be perpetrated on ourselves. We're the only country in the world that allows pharmaceutical corporations to charge whatever they want. Whatever they want. And insult to injury, U.S. taxpayers pay for the development of the vast, vast majority of drugs. We paid to develop them through the NIH. Keep me honest here. I can go off on this one for a while, but it's an important one because this is what's going on. Billionaires are the problem. But how many of you have heard of GLP-1, Ozempic, right? This is a very, very important drug. It has a lot of potential to change the world, to allow everybody to live healthier and longer lives. It really is amazing. You might also have in your head that it's manufactured or it's made by a Danish company, right? It's like Danish, so you're probably like, they probably did that. It's probably the Danish. They're smart. They are. Nothing on the Danes. But it wasn't. It was the VA. It was our tax dollars. And it was a study. The VA was looking at Gia monster venom for novel molecules, which just is another tangent. You know, when the Republicans are like attacking science and research and they're like, and they're doing investigations on Gia monsters. What is that? And you're like, this is that. That's how we find GLP-1s. That's how we make breakthroughs. U.S. taxpayers paid for this, and still this Danish company charges us the highest prices in the world. We pay more for Ozempic here than Danes do in Denmark. That's what drives this. We're allowing ourselves to get ripped off. It's certainly not Social Security. This is just again saying, at the end of the century, in the year 2100, it's still going to be right around 6% of GDP of our own money that we're spending on a system that we love and that works really, really well. That's not a crisis. When I think of the year 2100, when I think of the future that my children who are 7 and 9 have to face, I don't think of Social Security being in crisis. I can name 176 things that are in line way before that. The only crisis with Social Security is the billionaires who won't stop trying to rob it. But don't take my word for it. Literally everything I say, Google it. You can Google fact check me in real time. Gia monster, GLP-1, VA. This is the Social Security trustees, the actuaries of Social Security. This is their myth facts. So I'm going to go through them. because it's important. Myth number one, Social Security is bankrupt, insolvent, or running out of money, right? Fact, Social Security cannot run out of money. As long as there are workers working in this country, then there is Social Security. It cannot run out of money. And that's why it's not a mistake that they keep saying bankrupt, right? They're not telling you what the issue is, what the problem is, because if you don't know what the problem is, you can't come to the right solution. This is the problem. Even if Congress allowed the trust fund reserves to deplete, continuing income would cover 83% of scheduled benefits in 2035 and 73% of scheduled benefits until 2098, which is now 2100. But unfortunately, it's also now, because of the Republican budget, 2032. So Donald Trump's Republican budget, the Republicans in Congress have shaved off another 3 years of solvency from the trust fund. And what does that mean? It means we have 8 years to make billionaires pay the same rate as the rest of us, or everyone faces a 17% benefit cut, between 17 and 23%. Now that is an absolute disaster. Imagine 73 million people getting a 17% benefit cut all at the same time. Not only would you have mass harm and death, but the economic consequences would just be astronomical. The disruption would be something that we've never seen before, right? But it's not going bankrupt. It's wildly different than going to zero. If you think you're going to get nothing, you might be willing to accept less than you're owed, right? If you think you're going to get zero, and I say, I'll give you 70 cents on the dollar, you might think that I'm giving you a good offer, 70 cents. But I'm actually stealing 30 cents from you. When you know what the problem is, 83% of scheduled benefits in 2032, you can arrive at the right solution. So I want to do a couple more, and then we'll get to that the billionaires are the problem. That's over and over again. But how many of you have heard this? People are living longer, right? People are living longer. That's why we need to raise the retirement age. First of all, people are not living longer. Some people are living longer. Richer people are living longer. Working people have seen reversals in their life expectancy for the past few years. Racial and ethnic minorities have not shared in the living longer. So some people are living longer, but not everybody. Importantly, the actuaries have factored that in since 1935. They've accurately predicted increased longevity. And I don't want to spend too much time on these slides, but I will also say, if everyone was living longer, I would say those should go to retirement years, right? I mean, you could keep working if you wanted to, but the billionaires see that and they're like, we're going to make you work till you die. In fact, their proposal is rich people are living longer, so working people have to work till they die. It's not that people are living longer. It's not going to go bankrupt. Probably heard this one. The money in the trust fund has been spent, or it's been stolen, right? And actually, both sides do this. Usually they point at each other and they're like, yeah, they stole all the money. That's why there's a problem. Absolutely untrue. There's $2.3 trillion sitting in trust for the American people, and every penny that goes into Social Security can only, by law, be spent on benefits and the administration of those benefits, which is all the offices, the employees, the phone number. This is going to be important in the more depressing part of the presentation. We pay for it, but the trust fund is every dollar of income is invested by law in interest-bearing securities backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. These are the exact same treasury bonds that the banking system is built on, right? Market yields, absolute opposite of worthless IOUs. So the money hasn't been spent. So what is the problem? I used to have the actuary slide. If anyone wants it, I'd happily send everything to everyone. But I got many, many notes that the actuary slide was really incomprehensible. So I just removed it and I put the takeaway in big red numbers. This is the problem. Do you know what this is? This is the Social Security cap. This is the reason that billionaires don't pay the same rate as the rest of us. The actuaries of Social Security say this is the entire problem. None of the other things that you hear are the problem. It's all smokescreen so that you don't understand what the problem is, so that you can't arrive at the right solution. If you make $200,000 a year, you pay on the first $176,000. If you make $200 million a year, you pay on the first $176,000. If you make $2 billion a year, still $176,000. This is the problem, but it's a little deeper. The trust fund solvency was supposed to go to the end of the baby boom, which is 2065. But along the way, that's moved all the way into 2032. It's all because of the cap, but it's the cap combined with this, which economists call the Great Divergence. And it's that not only do billionaires not pay the same rate as the rest of us, billionaires have soaked up all of the gains of the economy since the 80s. Since Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher's neoliberal reactionary revolution. You've all heard all the different jokes and everything, about trickle down, voodoo economics. It's definitely not money that's trickling down on the people, all of that. This is that. It used to be that as productivity went up, so did hourly pay. As workers produced more goods and services due to technology and other advancements, they made more money until Ronald Reagan and his billionaires, they were like, hey, what about if we made all the money and productivity kept going up, but your hourly wage was flat? And everyone was like, that's a terrible idea. And they're like, we're going to do it anyways. You're going to get that a few times here. Because of this, all of the economic activity, basically all, has gone to people above the Social Security cap. And that's what's stolen 30 years of Social Security's future. So what is the problem? The billionaires are the problem. And I've tried to figure out a way to tell people to commune with this slide, the way you would with a work of art, like Guernica or something, because it actually is showing something that is devastating. If you really see that red line is middle class wealth, and the blue line is wealth of the top 1%. And this is 1990, and that is today. The top 1% now hold more wealth than the middle class combined. And we all know who actually makes America great. The middle class, the workers, working people, always. But it's the same picture. If there was PowerPoint back in 1935, I would be doing this PowerPoint about the billionaires at the time. That's where we are again. The billionaires are the problem. This guy is the problem. Now we get into some really dismal stuff. So the solution is we have 8 years to make billionaires pay the same rate as the rest of us. We want Elon Musk to pay the same rate as the rest of us on all of his income. And then there's no cut in 2032. And in fact, we can expand benefits by $200 per person per year. The solution is simple. Identify the problem, the Social Security cap. Get rid of the problem, solution's easy. But you know who else knows what the solution is? The problem. This guy knows that we need to get him to pay more into Social Security, and he's willing to go to great lengths to not do that. He's willing to buy Twitter for $61 billion, to lie, to cheat, to do everything he can, hundreds of millions of dollars, to get Donald Trump elected so that he could be on stage for this picture holding that chainsaw and saying, I'm going to take this through the heart of Social Security. On stage. That's this guy, the problem, Elon Musk. This is, I talked about the passive voice. Man, is the New York Times the leader of it, right? Like, this is amazing. Musk again misleads on Social Security fraud. And you're like, can't you just say he lied? He lied again and again and again. I said this earlier and I thought it was funny. I don't know if it is. People humor me. But it would be like if I said about my 9-year-old son, Xander again misled us about hiding candy under his pillow. Right? You're like, no, man, that guy lied to us about hiding candy under his pillow. That's innocent. This is evil. Elon Musk lied about Social Security over and over again. You remember Donald Trump going on stage for a joint session of Congress and spending 10 minutes lying about Social Security? He said, my good friend Elon Musk has found all these 130-year-olds getting benefits. Absolute lies. Provable, brazen lies. But that's the point. Brazenness. They said, oh, we found all this fraud on the phone system. They did not find all this fraud on the phone system, but they did destroy the phone system along the way. By the end of the Biden administration, Commissioner Martin O'Malley had gotten the wait time from 42 minutes down to 12. Elizabeth Warren did a study just recently. The average wait time was 5 hours. 5 hours. But you know what? It also dropped more calls after 5 hours than it answered. It's not an accident. They didn't again mislead. They are lying to perpetrate their goal, which is the destruction of the Social Security Administration. They can't get their hands on the benefits, so they're going after the system that delivers those benefits to you and everybody who relies on it. And actually, they're doing an incredibly good job of destroying that, of destroying the system. Trent, you might need to... Nope, it worked. Oh, it's a wonky now. So this is to March. Doge has cut 14% of the workers in Social Security offices in Montana. Rural states get hit the hardest. And this is to an already understaffed agency. It was the lowest staffing levels in 50 years. So I was just on the phone with the president of AFGE Council 220, who's telling me all of the field offices, you have offices that now have one person in there, and they're doing the job of 10 people. And the only reason we haven't faced catastrophic collapse already is because of the workers, the civil servants, who know that if they give up, people are going to die. And so they are working just at an unsustainable rate to keep the system going. And everything I say, the reason I'm doing a 1,200-mile tour of Montana is because everything is worse in Montana. All of the effects are worse in Montana because it's a rural community. Because they say, oh, just go to the next Social Security office over. They literally say that all the time in D.C. And you're like, you've never been to Montana, have you? It's a long way away. And the people who need to do that are the oldest of the old, people with disabilities, those least able to drive 4 hours to go to another office. Montana is going to face further and further devastation, both in Social Security and what I have coming with Medicaid. But this is the nerdiest slide. Actually, first, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to read you a couple just so that you know. It's happening. It's not in the future. It's happening now. In every stop that we have had, there's been stories of people being affected today in Montana. Complaints about missed payments are mushrooming the Arizona Attorney General's office. A Connecticut agency assisting people on Medicare said complaints related to Social Security have doubled in the last year. This is West Virginia. We're seeing more mistakes being made. We're seeing more things get dropped. This is Missouri. What gets dropped sometimes are records of basic transactions. So you bring the paperwork in, you get your benefits approved, you go back, or you don't get the check, you go back and they say, we don't have record of that, right? This is the symptom. This is exactly what was predicted to us by the experts of this slide. This is the nerdiest slide, but bear with me. It just gets worse from here, but bear with me. There's a system called COBOL, which is under which is under Social Security. It's what gets the checks out to 73 million people. The first thing Doge did with that chainsaw is they went through the entire technology department. They fired everyone in IT. These are people, the only people who understand this system, the system that the whole thing is built on. And they replaced him, literally, with a 20-year-old guy named Big Balls. Right? That's them not even trying to hide what they're doing. And what they're doing is trying to wreck the system. They're trying to make Social Security not work so that they can rob it. They're causing an emergency so that they can say, I need emergency powers. We need a piece of legislation because Social Security is broken. This is the same thing they always do. They kneecap the mailman, then they complain that the mail is late, and they just so happen to remember that they have a cousin in the private parcel delivery business. You'll pay 4 times as much and get 1/3 of the services. Privatization, call it what it is, ripping us off. And unfortunately, as a country, we are unique in our ability or our allowance of being ripped off. Remember what I told you about pharma and drug prices, big insurance? I'm worried that we're just going to accept the privatization of Social Security. And after 90 years, we're not going to be able to celebrate the 91st anniversary of the same system. Because that's the way it's headed right now. And everything is worse for Montana than anywhere else. They're trying to wreck it so they can rob it. That's not me. That's Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who ran the Social Security Administration, who said he's done the work. And he's looking at what they're doing and he's saying, this is not what you would do if you were trying to fix anything, if you're trying to make things better. This is only what you were doing if you were trying to wreck it. So what can we do? Raise the alarm. That's what we're doing here. But also protect ourselves, our families, and especially the most vulnerable in our communities. Because what we know is that they're driving people into offices that are closed. They have reduced office hours. People get to the office and they're told, oh, you need to make an appointment online. They try to get online. It says you have to use this new biometric face scanner. They can't figure that out, so they get locked out. So they call the 800 number. They're on the phone for 5 hours. If they get through, they're told to go to the office. And they're like, that's where I started. It is a devastating, it's a Kafkaesque nightmare. But imagine if you were trying to deal with it when also you're not getting the Social Security check that you rely on to live. And you're wondering, how am I going to make rent or mortgage or pay for the drugs that I need? And you're in a crisis. That's what they're trying to do. So we need to protect ourselves, and especially we know people who aren't that tech savvy, who have trouble getting online, who have mobility issues and can't get into the offices. We need our communities to come together, and Montana knows all about that. Montanans created the first old age pension system, before Social Security even. Montanans understand looking after ourselves. Look at your bank statements. Know exactly how much your benefit is and when you're supposed to get it. One of the first signs of the delays and disruptions is you're not going to get your benefit on the same day, and the number is going to go up and down. Find out how much you are supposed to get and when you get it. Document it. Print out your Social Security statement. I want you to have a hard copy that says, this is what my benefit is going to be. This is my wage history. Because I don't know about you, but I do not trust big balls in DC to not erase the data. I want you to have that, because listen to this. You will get every penny that you're owed. It's our money. But they can delay, disrupt, and make it difficult. And you need to be prepared to start a legal process to get that money back. You can work with a state level elected representatives. You can also call your federal electeds here as well. I know. Not to ask them to do the right thing. They've done the wrong thing, and we need to put pressure on them, and that's serious. But this is to actually talk to their constituent services side, the case managers in their offices. These are people whose job it is to get you every penny of federal benefits that you're owed. The purpose of doing all of this now, before a crisis, which everyone is predicting, a crisis, 73 million people's checks not going out, a catastrophic collapse, Those are all words that the most knowledgeable people about Social Security use to me all the time. I've been working in this for 15 years. The worst that I've ever seen anything. Nancy Altman, the president of Social Security work, she's been working in this for 50 years. The worst she's ever seen. She always tells me, if anything, you're underplaying it. They start a file, you want it all documented so that you can start the process of getting every penny that you're owed. What we've learned is that it's not just one check. When a disruption happens, it's usually months, 3 months, 4 months of disruption, of no check. And there's millions of Americans who rely on Social Security for their entire income. That's why we need to protect ourselves, because the people in power in Washington, D.C. are not looking out for us. They're making it worse. And unfortunately, that's not all. I know. That's why I brought cake. I'm serious. Because everything that I have said so far was the president with executive power, not Congress. But Congress just acted. Congress just passed what Donald Trump calls the big, beautiful bill, but is the Republican budget. They passed it. The Republicans, your elected representatives, full-throatedly supported. What they supported is $1 trillion in cuts from Medicaid, the size of which we've never seen before in the history of the country. I've talked to the historians. You go back to the Continental Army, and we've never seen a loss of health care at one time like this, ever. We've always been going in the other direction. Republicans have always said they wanted to do it, but we've always defeated them. I'm here to tell you we lost. They did it. This isn't in the future. It's done. 15 million people lose their health care. Hospitals, hundreds of hospitals, especially rural hospitals, close. Close to 1,000 nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities, close. Long-term care, which was not a great place to begin with, devastated. And you know who gets hurt the most? Rural states. This is Montana. These are the 8 hospitals that are going to close. Unless we fight to protect every single one of them and we win, these hospitals are going to close. And if you don't see your hospital on the list, this is from the Senate Finance Committee, if your hospital is not on the list, that doesn't mean that you're not going to feel the pain. Where do you think all the people who went to this hospital are going to go when their hospital's gone? The hospital that's still open. And if your hospital doesn't close, it's going to get rid of the most expensive activities that they have, which is maternity wards and level 1 trauma centers. Literally the things that you think of as a hospital. That's what we've already seen. Lewistown, right? Lewistown already lost. And here, you lost your maternity ward, right? And Providence in Paulson is one of the hospitals that's going to close. And these systems are getting hit to the bone, in the artery, whatever violent imagery you want, it's still not going to actually accurately get to the magnitude. Because your maternity ward closed before the cuts. Because we were already in a situation when corporations were saying providing rural health care is not profitable for them. So they were already pulling back. And now, $1 trillion cut out of the system. I know. Please, have some cake. I'll buy you drinks afterwards. I'm sorry. There's one more slide, and I'm sorry, there's 2 more slides. Skilled nursing facilities. Montana was already woefully under, they do not have enough skilled nursing facilities. But now, at least 2, and that list, I believe, is probably just very underestimating. But that one in the middle in Lewiston is gone. So where are they supposed to go? This is memory care, 24-hour skilled nursing, right? You're going to move everyone across the state. Faith, how many beds have already been lost? 8,500 plus beds have already been lost in Montana already. Going around the country, the state, We had a person come out who ran a mom and pop skilled nursing facility. And that's why I think the data is under reflecting that is actually, there's more prevalent in Montana and they don't show up in the data. And she said, we put the for sale sign up. We can't, this doesn't work anymore. You know, we can't run this as a business. Already there wasn't enough and there's about to be a lot less. $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts. And this is the one that I was going to say, I'll buy you a drink. Because it's not just that 51,000 people are going to die who wouldn't have otherwise died, according to Yale Public Health. 51,000 people will die because of the Republican budget. And who? It's seniors on Medicare Savings Program, which is people who were getting Medicaid dollars to help them afford Medicare, e.g. the most vulnerable people in our society, and folks in skilled nursing facilities. Again, the most vulnerable in our society. What the Republican budget did is it traded the lives of the most vulnerable people in our society for trillions of dollars in tax handouts to a handful of billionaires. And just sit with the despicableness of that. And that's why I said we can have a philosophical debate about what is missing from these billionaires, that they are celebrating this right now. But also, this is what our economy looked like in 1990. The blue is manufacturing. The mustard is retail. We used to build and sell things. Remember in the chart when it had the middle class, they held all the wealth? That was here. And then remember the billionaires said, hey, what if we took all of your jobs and we shipped them over to China and we made all the money and you didn't? And everyone was like, no, I don't want that at all. And they're like, well, we're doing it anyways. And this is what we had. And this is what we have. The purple is healthcare. Our economy is dominated by healthcare. Our manufacturing economy was in many ways replaced by a healthcare economy. And then you cut $1 trillion from healthcare. And what we're going to see, the only analog is that like the deindustrialization of America. Devastation through the Rust Belt, right? When those 8 hospitals close, if we don't come together and fight back and save as many of them as possible, remember, in much of rural America, the hospital is not just where you go if you break your arm. It's also the largest employer in the county, the largest provider of insurance in the county. It's the economic engine of the county. And when those hospitals close, just like those factories in the 80s, it never comes back. The Republicans had to pass a relief fund, which is the same thing you get when you have a natural disaster, a $50 billion relief fund against their own bill. They had to give $50 billion Band-Aid on a $1 trillion amputation. So I will say, this is where it's tough to land this one. This is the hope. But remember, Social Security was born out of the Great Depression. Through adversity, solidarity grows. And it's not that the American people support what I just told you about. All the opinion polling shows that they don't support it. They just don't know what has happened. Remember how the Republicans passed their budget. They lied all the way across the finish line, right? They said, we're not cutting Medicare, as they signed into law the largest Medicare cut in history. So we need to use our superpower, and seniors have a superpower. You always vote in every single election. Seniors determine every single election. And a lot of that is because you have great networks and you're the valued truth teller in those networks, and you need to take the fear, disgust, whatever you're feeling after this presentation and turn that into action and organized action through Big Sky 55 and change the story that I just told. And from the harm that the billionaires and Republicans have perpetrated on us, build a system for my children, for our grandchildren in the future a system that works for the people and not the billionaires. And then I want 90 years from today, somebody to have a birthday cake that says happy 180th birthday to Social Security. And I know we can do it by standing together and raising our voices like the American people have done every time before. When the billionaires win, we don't kneel, we stand up and we fight back. So I would I can't ask for a round of applause. I wanna, are you ready to stand up and fight back? So thank you so much for listening. I know I talked for a really long time. I always do. Sorry about that. Sorry for it being such a bummer. But also, get organized. Big Sky 55, that's the anti-billionaire. That's the antidote to what I talked about. This is our campaign, protectourchecks.org. This campaign, this tour is part of it. We have dozens of events across the country. This is just the start. We never give up. We only fight back.
Hi, I'm Trent Bolger. I'm the Executive Director for Big Sky 55 Plus. I hope you're as charged up as I am after watching our great partner, Alex Lawson, who's the Executive Director of Social Security Works. There's a couple of things you can do to join the fight. You can hit the share button, which is somewhere around this screen, and share it with your friends. The second thing you can do is there's either a QR code or you can go to bigsky55.org and sign up for our email list. The last thing that you can do, small dollars really make a difference, and you can give us a small dollar donation. I really appreciate every single one. Alex and I worked really hard, as well as the Big Sky 55 Plus team, to bring this message to hundreds of people, but thousands of people is always better. I hope you can help us by sharing this video. Thank you.